This is a brief timeline about the history of Jesus' life. We know in 4 BC, King Herod the Great, ruler of Jerusalem, dies. We know in 8 BC, Caesar Augustus decrees that a census of the entire Roman Empire will be taken. This includes Israel. In Luke chapter 2, verses 1 and 2, Caesar Augustus issued a decree that a census should be taken of the entire Roman world. This was the first census that took place while, or in some scriptures, the first census that took place before Quirinius, governor of Syria, was in control of Judea. In Luke chapter 2, verse 2, Joseph goes from the town of Nazareth in Galilee to Judea, to Bethlehem, the town of David, to register, because he belonged to the house and line of David. While he was there with Mary, it was time for the baby boy to be born. This is Jesus. Jesus was born on the 25th of December. Jesus in Luke chapter 2 verse 8 is born in a manger in the company of shepherds, and in Matthew chapter 2 verse 11 Jesus is also in the company of the Magi from the east. In Luke chapter 2 verses 21 to 22, on the 8th day Jesus is circumcised, and he is also purified as required by the law of Moses, as every firstborn male is to be consecrated to the Lord. In Matthew chapter 2 verse 16, King Herod gives orders to kill all boys in Bethlehem and surrounding areas who were aged 2 years and under. King Herod was highly disturbed knowing that the Messiah Jesus had been born, which he thought threatened his rule. In Matthew chapter 2 verse 13, the angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in a dream, instructing Joseph to get up and take the mother and child to Egypt and to stay there. In Matthew chapter 2 verse 19, only after Herod dies in 4 BC, Joseph is instructed again to get up and take mother and child back to Israel. So we know from Revelation chapter 12 verse 6 that the woman fled into the wilderness for 1260 days, which means Jesus, Joseph and Mary lived virtually 3+ years in Egypt in the wilderness from approximately 7.5 BC to 4 BC until Herod dies, and then it is reasonably safe to go back to Israel. In Matthew chapter 2 verses 19 and 20, after Herod dies in 4 BC, the angel of the Lord tells Joseph to take the child back into Israel. Jesus re-enters Israel on the 15th of September 4 BC and is revealed to the population of Israel. However, in Matthew chapter 2 verses 22 to 23, Herod Archelaus is in charge of Jerusalem after his father, King Herod the Great, had passed away. Joseph had been warned in a dream and decided to return to the district of Galilee and lived in a town called Nazareth, fulfilling what the prophet said that Jesus was a Nazarene. We know from Revelation chapter 12 verses 14 to 16 that the woman was given 2 wings of a great eagle so that she might fly to a place prepared for her in the wilderness. This is the district bordering the Sea of Galilee. They stay here for a times and a half. In Revelation 12, verse 16, the earth helped the woman by opening its mouth and swallowing the river the dragon has spewed out of his mouth. We think the Sea of Galilee and the River Jordan will be capable of swallowing such a deluge as this sounds. In 6th Common Era, Quirinius of Syria became governor of Roman Syria, and he was required to take a census of the new province of Judea. We believe this occurred when Jesus was approximately 12 to 13 years old, around the time of Jesus' bar mitzvah. In Luke chapter 2, verses 41 to 47, we see Jesus and his parents went regularly to Jerusalem for the festival of Passover. After the festival was over, on this particular occasion, the boy Jesus stayed behind in Jerusalem. His parents, who had temporarily lost Jesus, found him after 3 days. He had been in the temple courts, sitting among the teachers. In verse 47, everyone who heard him was amazed at his answers. His parents, who had been anxiously looking for Jesus, asked him, "Why have you treated us like this?" To which Jesus replied, "Didn't you know I had to be in my Father's house?" Jumping ahead along the timeline to 33 AD, we know of Jesus' crucifixion and resurrection. At the cross, Jesus fulfills the law given to Moses at Mount Sinai. This law was provided to the Jews from God himself, as at this time the Jews desired to be God-like, and fulfilling the commandments would secure this status. But no Jew could, except for Jesus. At the cross, Jesus' obedience sees the old covenant abolished between God and the Jewish population, and the new covenant established, where now we all can be saved by God's grace. As we read in John chapter 3, verse 16, "For God so loved the world, he gave his one and only Son, that whoever believes in him shall not perish, but will have eternal life." Jesus was approximately 40 years old at the time of the crucifixion. 40 is a prominent number of the Bible. Racing along the timeline towards the 18th of September 96 AD, the man of lawlessness, Emperor Domitian, dies, and on the same day the Roman Senate signed Marcus Nerva as the new emperor, which was the beginning of the era of the 5 good emperors. We believe that this is exactly 100 years from the time Jesus re-enters Israel until his kingdom, the Christian church, officially commences. The missing 3 days is the time period after Jesus is crucified until he is resurrected. As Revelation chapter 1 verse 10 reads, "On the Lord's day, I, John, was in the Spirit." And as Revelation 1 continues, John writes the last book of the Bible as given to him as revelation from Jesus Christ.